Hello, my name is Elias Burkle, um, and this is my seminar and project for the course. Um I'm doing acid rain in particular. How does it impact the ecosystem? Expanding on that question, you can go into two fields of thought. The first field, how does the acid rain impact the fauna? In particular, how does it impact their ability to breed or grow? Um, the other field of thought is how does acid rain impact the flora or the vegetation in the region? In particular, how does the acid rain impact their growth or their the soil that they inhabit? Um, just to define acid rain as a baseline for info. Acid rain is rainfall made sufficiently acidic by atmospheric pollution, usually causing environmental harm. The acid rain in China is roughly a pH of 5.6. I know that seems like an obscure kind of fact to throw in there, but it comes into play later quite often. What was it? This is just a good little diagram of how the atmospheric pollution leaves factories, goes into the atmosphere, and then goes up down through condensation or precipitation into the vegetation of a region. Research on the topic is not new. In fact, there was a long-term study in Norway where scientists Mass and Grenfelt, I'm going to butcher their names, there's no way around that. Anyway, they studied and gathered results of acid rain over the area for 40 years. During that span, the pH of the water in a lake they were studying steadily increased, and it rose over that span. Eventually, that pH exceeded the lake's ability to neutralize the acid. This ability is also known as acid neutralizing capacity, or ANC for short. I don't need the stick to point at it. This little graph in my figure is the ANC. There's a line right here that represents the ANC, and the dots and the things being graphed are the acidity levels. And eventually, as time goes on, they far exceed the lake's ability to neutralize the acid. And this is also just another graph of the pH in the lake just steadily rising. The pH surpassing the lake's ANC was also caused by lowering levels in sulfate, as you can see in this graph. These cause odd spikes in the populations of many species, as you can see in this chart, and this chart. They all kind of start high, dip down, and then skyrocket right at the end. There's not a figure that I was able to access for it, but the rising pH levels negatively affected and impacted other fish species such as trouts, salmon, because it kind of hindered their ability to breed and lay eggs in the region during flooding. A study was done on trout in the 90s at the Research Fellowship at Canada's International Institute for Sustainable Development experimental lakes area. Uh, it showed that once a pH got to a certain point, roughly anything higher than 5, almost like China's acidic rain, um, all the food in the area died, or the food for the trout died. So, thusly, the trout died as well. Uh, this study was Leslie Evans Ogden, by the way. Um, Impacts more than just fish and other species of animals. It also impacts us, humans. There may be a correlation between acid rain caused by industrial waste and Parkinson's disease. This was found out in a study done by Gary G. Schwartz and Mark R. Williamson. To quote them, Parkinson's disease were inversely correlated with well water use and positively correlated with industrial releases of sulfuric acid. And that sulfuric acid eventually turns into the atmospheric pollution that becomes acid rain. As you can see on this chart, there is a positive trend on this graph between acid precipitation and Parkinson's disease per 100,000 people. The only real outliers are, it is really only Minnesota. Everything else tends to move upward on the graph. All right, impact on soil. This is starting to be where acid rain impacts flora and vegetation. During a study in the broadleaf forests of the Three Gorges Reservoir area in southwest China, Li Wang and Wai Zhang recorded and discovered that the acid rain steadily hinders the area's natural ability of soil respiration. Soil respiration is putting the CO2 back into the soil. This was both cumulative and annual rates that were affected. These are the annual rates, and these are the cumulative rates. As you can see, they're identical, and year to year, 2016 to 2017 is pretty much the same for each study. Okay. This was done by setting up 4 plots. Each one had 32 subplots. And they applied a simulated acid rain mixture to simulate the acid rain in China. Results were measured 2 days after treatment, where they'd apply it, then 2 days later they'd go and take the soil sample. This negatively impacts the CO2 in the soil and how well flora can grow and maintain a healthy state. This is photosynthetic rate. Once again, this is a study in China. This is because they have huge acid rain issues and environmental issues in general. It was seen that photosynthetic rate of Aceriginala seedlings that rate decreased over time when exposed to acid rain. This study was done by Yufu Gao and Li Ping Rong. Once again,
yes?
I butchered those, and I accidentally turned on Surrey on my laptop.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Bet you can't, sorry. Um, acid, acid rain was simulated by putting 2-year-old seedlings in a greenhouse and then watering them with a solution and a mixture that approximated the same pH level as the acid rain in China. Um, as you can see, this one in particular, this is the photosynthetic rate, and you can just see as pH gets higher, the photosynthetic rate drops, and that's for all three. They did it for 3 plants, and it didn't only slow down the photosynthetic rate. It slowed down the the stomatal conductance, and stomata is where everything transports through. It also lowered the CO2 concentration amongst all plants studied. Farming. Okay. Acid rain has become just such a huge issue in China that Chinese scientists Youwei Li and Shengzhong Liang are studying. They studied ways to counteract it. What was it? They because acid rain is impacting their agricultural yields in China, they tried to come up with a way to reverse it, and they correctly hypothesized that calcium can help reduce the negative impact that acid may have, or acid rain may have on crops. So they took soybean yields and tested on that. This was done by taking the soybean plants and exposing them to, once again, a simulated mixture to simulate acid rain, then adding calcium to half of them, and then comparing them. After this is after a recovery time to see their growth. So this is during an exposure period, and this is during a recovery period. Those with calcium recovered significantly better in terms of height and weight than those without calcium. You can see that. I know it's far away, but SARS-2, and then there's SARS-2 with calcium, and just straight off the bat, it's almost 10 centimeters longer and weighs much more for its above ground dry weight and its dry root weight. And in every category, and I'm not going to go through all the numbers, I'm just using SAR2 as an example. Every category, SAR2 with calcium also recovered better straight away, because that's with the simulated acid rain. That's what SAR2 means. With calcium 2, it recovered during the recovery period. It grew about 5 inches, while without calcium, it only grew less than 3. It recovered more weight in both categories as well. Decomposition of biological material. Acid rain inhibits the breakdown of leaves and other biological material in freshwater. This was discovered in a study done by J. Du, M. Zhang, Y. Ku, and H. Zhang. Butchered on my no. But they discovered that leaf decomposition, the decomposition of fungal biomass, and even the enzyme activity all slowed down. And they called this a microcosm study, because imagine this on a larger scale. There's no ability for the ecosystem to replenish the nutrients and the resources it needs to function. All right. Decomposition / litter. Cambridge defines litter decomposition as the process through which dead organic material is broken down. And this is not. This is done to a point in which it's unrecognizable. Another study was done in 2020, very recently, in order to discover the amount of matter left over from plants and vegetation, which is we're going to refer to as litter. They studied the amount of litter left over from 3 separate tests done on an ecological farm. The litter treated with acid rain often had more left over after extended time. There are 6 charts here. It's maize, rice, and soybean. And more often than not, if you break down the chart, I know you guys don't have the world's greatest view. What was it? You see, like right here, the ones with acid rain tend to have more left over. And that they had 2 acid rain subjects and 1 control for each test. All right, conclusion. Acid rain is impacting lake and river life hugely. It's affecting the pH of lakes and rivers and affecting how well they can neutralize that acid. At some point, they just are unable to. It's affecting the breeding of fish and the population sizes of other organisms. Acid rain has detrimental effects upon plant life. From the nutrients they can absorb to how well they grow to even how they die and break down into material for the next bunch of vegetation. And acid rain may even be correlated to Parkinson's and things that affect human life. Frankly, needs to be more needs to be done on the issue, though it gets very little attention worldwide, especially in China. All right, and these are my resources. I hope you enjoyed my seminar, and thank you.